Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
Hey, Coach Jay, I can hear you loud and clear. How are you doing today?
Doing well, doing good. How are you doing today, sir?
Um, I s- I survived with a small flesh wound.
Here we
How
go.
about yourself?
Managed losses. I took some losses today as well. Managed, but got kind of caught on the wrong side of the market. But we live to trade another day. But welcome to all of our buzzer beaters. Welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, the goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. May talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. If this is our first time meeting, Coach Jay, been a top set performance coach since June 3, been trading for the past 13 years and in the futures markets for the past 6, and that is Coach Paul. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Coach.
I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Topstep since April of 2023. I've been involved in the futures trading industry for 4 decades. I'm here to share some experience, some knowledge, and perhaps help you become a better trader.
Some stuff. Thank you for that, Coach. Let's get into the news. We know we had some news come out, some earnings numbers come out. We are in earnings season right now. Microsoft numbers came out as well as Meta. So we have Microsoft earnings per share came in at $3.46. Estimate was $3.21. Beat on revenues as well, 70.07 billion. Estimate was 68.48 billion. Cloud revenue 42.4 billion. Estimate was 42.22. And for Meta, earnings per share came in at $6.43. Estimate was 5.25. Revenues came in at 42.31 billion. Estimate was 41.38 billion. And some good looking numbers. Some good looking numbers. We've seen the response to it as well. I'm going to switch over really quick to a trading view chart. I should be able to see that right now. We see the response in Microsoft, closed the session right around $392, traded all the way up to 420 and holding that spike right now. Um, so looking pretty good. And you might be wondering, hey, this is Top Step. We trade futures. Why are we looking at this stuff? Because these are the two of the biggest weighted companies, not the two biggest, but two of the biggest weighted companies in the Nasdaq. So as these companies move, the Nasdaq is going to move with the components with them of them as well. Uh, Zoom out to a daily, and I mean, saying that, Coach Paul, this is Microsoft chart. This could very easily be a Nasdaq chart or an S&P chart.
Can we bring them up side by side?
Let's see if we can do that. Let's see if we can do that. If we can do a little side by side here. If I paid for TradingView, I could. So I can't.
Uh,
I can
okay.
build another shot to take a look at it, but uh, yeah, they're almost the exact same chart.
Yeah, they are. And see, it's a good question. Why do we earning? Why do we do this? Earnings are a large variable for and stock indices. Our number one traded products here are stock indices. So this is a large part of the market, and we'll cover it.
Yes, we will. I think what's interesting, as these earnings come out, and especially for forward guidance, especially with tariffs and all these other things, I don't know that we're seeing the effect, if any at all, in these earning reports. Maybe for the next one, and then seeing the difference in forward guidance from companies that uh, are kind of internet based. We know Meta, Microsoft. They there's a lot of either ad revenue for Meta, cloud revenue for Microsoft, but companies that have physical products, right? Chip makers, Nvidia, and things like that. How their forward guidance might have changed with the effect of tariffs. I don't know that they would be affecting these companies as much, but we will see. And that is as far as I'm going to get in being an economist. We see Meta's response as well. Meta closed the day at right around $547, traded up to 580 and holding that as well. So it looks pretty good for the equities. Of course, you get the reaction after the markets are closed, so not as much volume can trade. every time we look at one of these, Coach, we say the same thing. What will happen when New York opens tomorrow and the volume comes back into the markets?
The most important time the, would be the first half an hour tomorrow, and
Yep.
from my experience.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else on the earnings, Coach? We also did get eBay reporting as well. But
eBay. When's the last time you used eBay?
we were talking about that during Power Hour. Dakota was saying he bought something in December. I think I put the last thing I bought on eBay was probably 3 years ago. What about you?
Yeah, I thought it was just a boomer thing. No, but I don't. I don't. I think I used it once.
Oh yeah,
Um, but yeah, eBay is still like I said, a Huckleberry. It's still a thing.
Coach Hoop says
Um,
auction for my LeBron card. Coach Hoop, I might have bought that from you because the only thing I bought on the last thing I bought on eBay was a LeBron card. Uh, so maybe we traded Coach Hoop. Uh, but looks like they beat on their expectations as well, on their estimates. So shout out to eBay. All right, let's switch back over to Topstep X and let's take a look at the other news that we had on the calendar. Today was a busy day as far as news goes, and it started early. We had some CPI numbers coming out of Europe, but then when we got to the New York session, we had ADP unemployment change coming at 62,000. Forecast was 115,000. Uh, we had the US GDP numbers come in negative 0.3%. Forecast was negative 0.2%. What else do we have? There's a ton of stuff. PCE price index year over year came in at 2.3%. Forecast was 2.2%. Shout out to Jack who called that number exactly. He said this number is going to come in exactly at 2.3%. Uh, don't know how he does it, but he did it. We had Chicago PMI coming at 44.6. Forecast was 45.9. Of course, we had crude oil inventories. It is Wednesday. Come in at negative 2.696 million. Forecast was negative 0.579 million. Uh, and then I'm sure we have some comments from the president as well. Tonight is his first 100 days in office for his second term. So he's going to be speaking tonight. It looks like it says 8 p.m. Eastern time. So Dakota and I may be keeping an eye on that during slow markets tonight. But anything else you have on the news, Coach?
yeah, that GDP number was pretty big. That drove that initial break.
Yep.
Um, and it was bigger than expected on the drop. Um, and boy, things can change in a hurry.
Yes, they can.
Um, I there was a comment here from I think it's PLTT. I was sitting on the sidelines all day and caught that last hour rally. Holy cow. That is why it's important to be patient and not trade every little market reaction.
Yep.
I get a big shout out. That's exactly it. Today is a day where you can get spun around, blown up, um, trying to be right, but being patient and executing your trading plan. You could lose well today. You could have won big. But the big thing is don't get torn up on days like today. That's good to hear because today that with that GDP number, um,
It looked like we were going to sell off. I
it
thought
looked
we were
like
going to have another 5% down day.
yeah, well, it was, and that's what we think. And,
Right. Here's
um,
what you think.
market surely doesn't.
Nope. Not at all.
So
All right, let's get into the charts. Normally, when we do this session, I have a quote board up and we talk about the biggest percentage movers on the day. That account, I'm having a little bit of a data issue that you might have seen on TopStep X. For some people, it wasn't for everybody. Obviously, we were trading on TopStep TV all day on TopStep X. But if you did see a data issue, just reach out to support. They'll take care of it for you. So we won't be going over the quote board today. So let's just get right into the charts. I have an S&P chart up here, Coach Paul. We are on a daily. And let me actually fix these moving averages because they're not the right values.
I was going to say, wow,
20,
this
50.
rallied a lot more than I thought.
That looks more like it. That
Oh,
looks more like it.
what's that purple line?
The 50-day moving average. The moving averages I have on my chart, the gold one is the 20. The purple is the 50, the white one is the 200. We're looking at a daily chart here, 56.47. S&P is trading 56.20s right now. Uh,
And look at that wick.
yeah, that's a 126 point wick on the daily.
Um, so can just looking at it, I guess that earnings really. It's been said many times that earnings drive the stock market, and well, there's evidence. Economically, very bad news, but that huge rally and most of it on the earnings reports, I guess that's what counts. Well, especially someone like Microsoft, that's an international company.
Yep.
I mean, that is not a domestic company. So one other thing is this is a huge outside day. Took out what, one, two, three, the last 3 days range in just about an hour.
Yeah, so that was the interesting thing about fast markets this morning, where this wick, you're right, see this candle as green now, but this was an engulfing candle over the last 3 days range to the downside. Um, and I think I was looking at, hey, if we close below 54.75s, uh, we're right back into the April 9th range. The wild close.
It's, yeah, let's take a look at that half hour. And that'll see just how
Let's
wild that was.
take a look at it, and I will go over the trades that I took this morning. Took some losses, but that is all right. Here is last night's open. Last night's open in the S&P. Uh, Nice selling to start. We came right back to, uh, it got going early, coach. Last night
Yeah,
we
it
opened
did.
up, had some urgency, selling into Asia. Came back, checked that range again during Europe. Couldn't trade above it. Looked like that was going to be highs of the day, and selling off.
With authority.
Yeah,
Now, there was a huge J trade on the half hour that saved my day.
nice. And
Uh,
go ahead.
I- so, well, we'll go over the J trade when you're done.
No, no, no. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we look at that. I was on the opening, large volume, large selling, and we frame that out and we close above it. And now this is a half hour time frame. Usually we see it on, we're looking at 3 minutes. This can happen at any time frame. Um, but that one was picture perfect. Let's put a VWAP on that. Well, there you go. Now, even though I'm aggressive, as soon as it closes above that, I want to own it. Except that was a large risk.
Yeah, if you're gonna risk that entire 30-minute range, yeah, that's huge.
Well, you can do that
Talking
with a
about
micro.
63 points in the S&P.
Yep, over $600 on a micro. But that's why that was that was pure unadulterated selling almost to a panic rate. Then once they were done and when you close over that, are they going to come in with that kind of volume and sell it again? Yeah, maybe, but to me, it's a low probability. And we see this pattern, and you got to trade it. I don't, that was a big risk. But as we talk about the principles of successful and consistent traders is predefine the risk, accept it, or move on.
Coach Paul, we got a question from you from Paul H. Hit the like, and I'm reading his name because it's a very important message in his name. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. We appreciate it. But why you're saying that this trade can happen on any time frame. A lot of times I'm looking at it on a shorter time frame. We can go down to a 3-minute chart and take a look at it. Why do you choose to look at the 30-minute in this case?
Well, on a 30-minute, I look at it all the time. That helps me. First, with I make decisions on longer term swing trades on the 30-minute. I also get my bias for the day on the 30-minute. Um, so every half an hour, I scroll through. Um, I have a routine. Um, and I had made an opening range trade that was on the sell side that I escaped with a profit. I'll just put it that way. But coming back in and understanding, stood out. Once you see what it looks like, you can see it. You could be happening on a daily. Um, but yeah, I look at the half hour all the time. Every half an hour, I have a timer. It's time, and this one just stood out.
Yep. Really nice rally, and that rally came off of the PCE number. We had, numbers after numbers coming out, and it seemed like, bearish print, GDP number, bearish, the unemployment number, bearish, and the market was selling. Um, and PCE turned us around. Here is that PCE print. And I got caught with a bearish bias today. That's my hat blending in. I got caught with a bearish bias. I'm gonna take this hat off. Caught with a bearish bias today, to the downside, with the market selling off. I got short in this PCE candle, but once we closed above that one, right at the lows, we have the newsprint there. Uh, Market rallied hard, and that was the low for the day. Took a
It
couple.
hasn't stopped
It hasn't stopped. It has
as
not
we make
stopped.
new highs.
So took measured losses, but I was completely wrong about the bias for the day. I think for me, getting caught in that bias, there were a couple times during fast markets where I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm definitely in a bias right now. I don't want to continue to short this market unless it gives me a signal," and it really never did. We can check. There was a couple of pullbacks to VWAP from the low of the day. Uh, but this was just a really strong up move from the low of the day. We were down 2% in the S&Ps. We are up right now, or we can go to the regular trading hour close, almost a 5% swing from low to high, which is a huge move. So if I continue to short this all day, be in a lot of trouble. So I'm happy that I took my losses. And should I have flipped sides? I could have. Uh, but I'm taking it as a win. Stop not continuing to short this market as it was pushing up.
There's a great comment on that, Coach. And said from the dude. Yes, was also bearish after the GDP spike and VWAP turning down and out of it until it started turning around. It was not an easy day to read. In hindsight, so clean though. it's that it's great insight. And like I said, Coach, did you blow your account today?
No,
Okay, you lost well then. That's good trading. If you're new to this game, when you can be wrong or in a rip roaring reversal like we just saw and lose within reason, reason to me is 10% of your equity. You did, you traded well. If you're new on a day like today and you fought that and because you were short and you were made money,
listen to what the market was saying.
from my experience, those are days where combines go, XFAs go, accounts are blown. The great insight.
Good stuff, Coach. You still here with me? I just making sure. I think I lost.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can still hear you. We might have lost connection for a bit, chat, but we are back. Yeah. If you stopped shorting this today, you won. You took your losses and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm not going to allow this to continue getting into my account." Um, you did your job. Just make sure everyone can still hear us. We're still playing on YouTube over here. We're good. Yeah.
Hmm.
Anything else you have on the equities, coach, going into the rest of the week? We got 2 days left. That was the end of the month as well. Let's take a look at the monthly candle. One of the wildest months we've seen
Ever,
ever.
ever. For me, ever.
Right. And
I
that's
mean,
the end of it.
we literally all ever.
Right.
I don't think I've where have I ever seen a monthly candle like that?
Let me give me 1 second. I just want to get the low of the day. 54.57 half. All right, 54.57 half. We're going to mark that out on the chart. 54.57. Right around there. Uh when's the last time we closed, and this is a 20 moving average, under that on a monthly? And today
Yeah,
we would have, if it wasn't for that rally towards
wow.
the end of the day.
What kind of candle is that?
A buy the dip candle. Uh it's okay to buy was said somewhere down here. And when you look at it this way, it looked like it was actually okay. Wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Wow. Uh, now contract our all-time highs coming. Not just um, I don't go that far.
If
I
there's a
remember
deal, so we go ahead, coach. Go ahead. Go ahead.
um, nothing. I'm not going to say it, but go ahead, Coach. You're going to
If
say something.
we've seen high to low a 13% move in the S&P in a day, when it said we were going to delay tariffs. If we say, hey, we've come to a deal, no tariffs at all, we're going back to normal, or whatever it is, we're only 10% from the all-time high right now. So earlier this month, we were talking about bear market territory. We were there, and we've recovered half of that, right? And closing this crazy month at just 10% down in the S&Ps. So yeah, we could be seeing new all-time highs in May if the news goes the right way. That's a big if, right? There's still not a resolution to the cause of this sell-off, but if there is, I think it happens really quick. But I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
we said.
hypothesize like that. We'll trade what happens.
Well, first thing, we're testing the 50 bar moving, 50-day moving average.
Mhm.
Um, and what you said, what goes back, I saw some headline about how this rally was similar to 2022 market. I'm like, hey, they must be
Must be
listening
tuning
to us,
in.
coach. Yeah.
Must be tuning in.
And it's still looking like it. But the when we talk about this a lot, these equities are designed to go up. So when selling stops, it rips on just naturally,
Yeah.
and we're seeing that. But once again, biggest thing that I see is earnings mean more than economics. And there it is right there.
Really quick, the NASDAQ is above the 50-day moving average. And the next target, I think, would be the high of Liberation Day, which the low of the day was pretty much the Liberation Day low. Came down, it looked like we were going to sell off. We held that level. Remember, Chad, we've been talking about this range. That was the low of the day. We closed above the 50 moving average on the daily. The high of that Liberation Day candle is 20,050. 20,050. Yeah, this is, it's crazy how these markets kind of change at the drop of a dime. This morning, it looked very bearish, and we could have been selling right back through April 9th. Still a big decision making area here, and whatever the move that comes out of this range, I don't see how that's a small move,
Yeah, could be right back up to the 200.
right? Uh, anything else on the equities,
And
coach, before we move on?
yeah, let's do it. I did this last night and I lost it on mine. Let's look at a trend line from the break in February. Um, we, this is a big trend line.
Kinda like that.
Yep. We didn't even test it. I thought when we talk about this break, did we test it today? No.
Nope. Yeah, we've broken through it, we haven't tested it, kind of at night 18,760.
Yeah. So the correction rally is in full gear. That's what we can call it to me.
Yep.
Or this is bullish. I don't, you can tag it with whatever you want. Winners are buyers in this last week and in a big way in the last few hours. Um, so
Stuff.
fully expect this to continue. I guess while we were talking, there was a headline: the EU to present trade proposals to the U.S. next week, according to officials.
Okay.
Boy, officials? I don't know, but
It's officially time to
that
buy. That is not financial advice, that was just a joke. But yeah, these markets do look bullish, right now, and especially if we're hearing deals are on the table. Anything else on the equities, coach?
um, that's it.
Right. Let's move over to gold. I'm just gonna do a quick scan of Dow and the Russell as we get there. Look at that. 20 moving average on the daily. Who says moving averages don't matter?
Well, they might not matter in your trading. I find them very helpful in guidance
Yep.
of price action. I once had an older trader, was when I first started um, charting. And we had to do that by hand on these big sheets. Anyway, he looked at me and he told me, he goes, doing charts, huh? He goes, every boat at the bottom of the sea has a chart in it. I'm like, oh man. So it didn't work for him, but it took me years later. I'm like, yeah, but you're not talking about every boat that made it from shore to shore with a chart on it. So
Right.
it's all a matter of your perspective, what works for you. Um, for me, it works. It helps me guide my trading.
Good stuff. Let's take a look at gold here. We know we made new all-time highs, 3509.90. Again, shout out to Hogue. He had a weekly kickoff level at 3510. If gold turns around and sells off this entire rally right at that price, that'd be insane. But what are we looking at here on the daily? Which well,
Well,
you talked
we
about
still
this.
hit the descending triangle. We went right to the base of it, and it looks heavy. Now, with that kind of action we're seeing, by the way, we don't talk about the short-term treasuries, but it's looking heavier and heavier. Um, to review, when we went through this the heaviest volume was the selling volume off the all-time high. We have not recovered from that. Next, we'll put a VWAP on that day.
Finally kind of leaving the range to the downside, acting as a resistance on the daily, and probably going to move down a little bit as we come into tonight's session.
And tonight could be a wild night. So let's look at and we explained this yesterday. VWAP, I mean the opening range has been sold versus being bought out of Asia, and
And
it
they
was
did
no
it again.
different. It's like, I don't know. I did catch a piece of that.
Nice.
Um, but look at it's amazing. It was around that same time that GDP number, gold broke I don't know, 25, $30. Um, but great trade on the sell side. Turn around. Where did we go back to?
Right back to the 30-minute opening range, Globex opening range, rejected from there. VWAP still moving to the downside. Uh, Nice two-sided opportunity that gold has been giving us in this balance range on the daily. Now, the thing is, with ranges, sometimes they're a little bit too tight to trade. We are still, I believe, seeing gold. Let me get the ATR so I don't have to guess. Uh, the daily ATR in gold is still at, some serious highs here. So it's a big enough range to trade, and I think decent enough to trade on both sides. Sell it at night, buy it back in the morning, until it changes.
It's
But
the
nice
cleanest
two-sided
trade
trade.
out there right now.
I
Yeah.
think so.
And, if you're trading a micro, let's look at the half hour ATR.
Half hour ATR during the daytime, 11, 12 points, we'll call it,
$120.
with a
Very
micro.
reasonable with a micro. That's one half an hour. I mean, the daily ATR is like 90. That's $900 on a micro. That's almost perfect for most of the accounts here at Topstep.
Yep.
Um,
So, oh, that's a really nice two-sided trade there. Really nice two-sided trade. I did take a gold long this morning, during fast markets. Yep, was kind of just getting long right back into this range up here. Took the trade off. Again, we have a level here where the market pretty much made the high on the open last night, with the exception of this little spike above it during Asia. So the long that I took, I was already kind of above 50% of the range. Wasn't going to hold on to the trade for forever, and had a decent profit target here. Again, another one where if I have higher expectations than what the market is willing to present. And sometimes, traders ask, how do you make that adjustment where, some days it's going to trend, some days it's going to rally. We've been talking about gold being in balance for the last, 6 days. Um, if it was to break that range, it would be obvious. And today there wasn't really much that was obvious about breaking this range to the upside. So have to manage expectations accordingly there. Uh,
but boy, it's still it's if it's going to continue this rally, they need some huge buying.
yeah,
So to me, that probability is very low.
especially if they're going to be buying the equities.
Yeah. Um, big, big couple days ahead for gold here. This is
Yeah.
get the popcorn out and your risk management, and let's roll.
If it's safe to buy equities and I'm long gold from 2,800, 2,500, 2,000, I might sell a little bit to move some money over to the equities. Why not? Take some profits, spend them somewhere else that's gonna give me a better return. Uh, Coach, if we break below, where would you
Well,
say that we
first
might
thing,
have a little bit of a shift here?
if we close below that neckline,
Okay.
well, it's right near the 20. What I'm saying is you could have, and I'm going to say it's when you see something like this, if you get liquidation, so it's like the boat is leaning on one side or teeter totter,
Yeah.
that medieval playground toy that every person at one time jumps off and lets the person on top come crashing down. Um, you could have that effect where it's a crowded door. If there's liquidation and people wanting to get short, um, y- y- it, I've talked about this before. You can see a day where it's like $200-300 lower.
Yep.
I'm not claiming predicting this, but that's what happens. We saw something similar in copper.
Let's go to copper. Shout out to D, who was in this trade.
Wow, nice sell. But
And
we
he's not
had
gonna look.
that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there was that blow off top.
Yep.
But look what happened. We got under the 20, and it's kind of the same wedge. Um, and once we got under the 200, I didn't even wait. I mean, there was a J trade to the upside. Um, yeah, wow, patterns do exist, but
Yeah, they do.
D caught the short. Oh, look at that.
Last night's open. They wow, that might be the trade
And
of the
was it
day right there.
where was that 200?
That might be the trade of the day. 200 moving average on the 30-minute was a
Minutes
little bit
under it.
higher than the open, but
Shaw. Wow. That's a big trade.
that's a huge trade. From that open to the lows, and we pretty much ended on the low, the day on the low. That might have been top percentage mover on the day today. Down about six at the close, down about 5%. At one point, copper was down almost 7% today. Uh, and there's opportunity in a bunch of different markets. A lot of the focus is on the equities and gold, but pretty much everything is moving right now. Um, and that doesn't mean you have to try to trade everything, but if you're struggling with the equities, there's opportunity out there. Coach Hoop says cattle
Uh,
was a close second. Go ahead, Coach.
His cattle. He said, "My cattle."
Coach Hoop, the farmer.
It was moving. Okay, Rich Layton. Thank you.
All right. Anointed Trades had a question. I'm pretty sure you were asking about the equities with this question. With summer approaching, how does the market typically like to act? Does it slow down in the summer? Uh, Sometimes when we try to find absolutes that way, yeah, I think general consensus is, what summer trading is usually slower, usually lower volume. But look at last summer, right? Last summer was almost as crazy as this last April that we had, right? July, we had extreme volatility in the uh in the equities last July, and I don't think this summer is going to be quiet either. I don't know. What do you think, Coach?
I don't think. Um, and, and,
You don't
and
think at all, or
typically, yeah, I try not to. When I
me too.
think, I get into trouble, man.
Me too, man. I was thinking this
Uh, I,
morning, and it was kicking my ass thinking this morning.
I, I just follow. We've talked about this many times. Is less I trade, the more I make.
Right,
But my philosophy is when I think too much, I don't follow a plan. I follow my emotions.
for sure.
Um, and so, but you're right. Typically, the summer slows down.
Yep,
One, okay, and it's right. But if it sets up expectations, and when you set up expectations, you remove yourself from the present. Like,
yep,
and as a trader, it's day to day, moment to moment. Staying in the present and trading in the present helps. I know when I get an expectation and it starts moving against my expectation,
you start questioning
I,
yourself. You start questioning everything.
yeah. Well, here's the summer slowdown. There's an old saying: "Sell in May and go away." Um, that's in a typical. We're not in a typical market right now, so I will say that. Um, Once the 90-day pause come to an end, I don't know. But you're right. I mean, that typically, but when it isn't like last summer, it can be very wild.
Yep. And Coach Hoop said it in the chat. Also, we're day traders, right? So I think if I'm going into it and saying, "Oh yeah, this is going to be slow," uh, and I'm still going to trade, that's not being a great day trader, right? That's going with an assumption of some historical data. We have to be the most present market participants that there are, um, and that's day to day. We'll see it if it happens. If it slows down, we'll definitely see it, right? Just like we saw the flip in gold, where it was buying in Asia and started to sell. It's because we're so close to it that you see it happen in real time, and I think that's the best way to kind of stay present in what you're doing as a day trader. Um, all right. What crude oil? Crude oil. We cannot
Crude oil.
skip crude oil today. Uh here it is on the daily. Let's take a look at this here. What are we seeing here? Could not get above that. Wow.
Well, you called it yesterday. Well, it's
Mhm.
not going up.
Right.
So with that said, I remember I didn't. It was you were adamant about that. What did you see yesterday that made you say that?
April 9th. traded above the range. We rejected the daily 200, and then we fell back into this range. And the target was 50% of this. And this is where I'm looking at myself and saying, "Hey, that was a great call, but you're not John Madden, right?" I'm yeah, I got to get on the field and take a part of this trade because I mean, it did exactly what we kind of said it was going to do, right? It rejected at those highs, and just like copper, um, we opened up last night, made the high of the day. Before this insane volatility during the middle of the day, whatever this was about, the trade was we failed on a higher time frame to find any buyers, and we got almost a 6%. Crude might have been top percentage mover on the day if we had the quote board available. Down 6% today. Coach, you there?
Yeah,
I thought you
and,
froze. You can't do that to me, man. I thought I lost internet or something. Come on.
I frozen it. I took that, and once again, I took a little bite and didn't. That really. I was thinking it looked like copper,
Yeah.
almost the same time, the same movement. So, hey, someone just typically when we talk about typically focus on a trading plan. That's it. Um, boy, that was a bigger move than I thought. Um, and most of that move on that break on what was that on the was that the weekly API number?
Uh, so I don't even know that it was that because the number normally comes out at what time? 10:30 Central, 11:30 Central. Yeah. So the number came out before that. That break wasn't even on the number. I don't know what this was. There was a headline. There had to be a headline.
Um,
Coach Hoop said there
well,
was some news after.
bottom line, there was more sellers than there were buyers,
Yeah. I mean,
and we could see that with VWAP. I'm not even being a smartass now.
no,
There it is. Who
the
is in
entire way down.
control?
Entire way down. I did miss a trade while we were on fast markets. This spike. Uh, Andre called this out. He's like, "Oh, gold selling hard here." Anytime I hear somebody, have that type of reaction to the market, my initial reaction is to go look at it right away to see whether or not that selling is sustainable. How do you do that? Same way we do it every single time. Attaching VWAP to the candle that made that high volume. I don't need to catch this move because I had no idea that this move was going to happen. What is interesting is that that move happened exactly at $60 even in crude oil, where we could not find a buyer above it. But even this, you can let this 3-minute candle print, and the same thing we do all the time: attach volume to it, attach a VWAP to it. There's your opportunity to sell against it. And this might not have been a market. I wasn't looking at trading crude, during fast markets. Um, Unfortunately, I had a issue with the account that I was trading, but you know, not looking at it until the volume starts to print. Right? Somebody either needed to or had to or really wanted to make this trade. My job is to kind of follow them after the fact, and even then, that's a huge move from there. Right? We're talking about 2% in 12 minutes, 20 minutes in crude oil, which is pretty nice. Zooming back out to a daily, if we hold below the 50% of this April 9th candle, right? The initial goal was if we can't hold above the high, we fade back down to 50%, hold 50%, which is at 58.40. Right now, crude closed at 58.22. Next look is the rotation back to the lower extreme, 54.52. Anything else you have on crude oil, coach?
Yeah, but still, but it looks like we're heading to the bottom of that range in a hurry. This close looks exactly like yesterday's close.
Yep. Closing on the lows, yeah. Or pretty close to them.
I mean, they have not found buyers. This is um so I mean that's a trend. Trend is your friend.
Yes, it is. Genius Genie has a question. What's the best way to practice holding on to winners longer? I am really struggling. Please help. Uh, First, you have to identify whether or not the trade is giving you a market is giving you an opportunity to hold on to a trade longer, right? You know, time frames are all relative, right? What are you considering longer? Am I looking at this gold trade here, which played out over, the course of an hour and a half to the long side, but this is a market that's been trading both sides, kind of two-sided range, or am I talking about something like crude oil where it's trending? So I think if you don't have somewhat of a way to establish an idea of how much a market can move, then I think it's unfair to yourself to say, yes, I shorted this market and I should have caught this whole move. How do you expect to catch this if you can't measure what the expectations are? So that would be the first part. And then the second part is if you measure it, put the trade on and see how long you can go without looking at it, right? Walk away from your desk, go outside, put a trade on, profit target, stop loss, and then just see how long you can go without even having to look at what the trade is because you've already defined exactly what you're looking for. Um, what would you say to that, coach?
Someone just said that BRAD and plan the trade and trade the plan.
Yep.
Once again, from trading in the zone, one of the greatest. I mean, I think it's the best on trading. It's not technical book. Um, the 7 principles of consistent winners. Define your edge. Predefine the risk. Accept that risk or move on. Now, one of the things when we do that, we get into a routine. We have set losses, gains. What our mind will do is, if I just hold on to that longer, then I make more money. And that looks great, except when it doesn't work. What I would encourage you to do is, and you seem like you have a process, just while you're asking that. Um, are you holding on to winners that, or holding on? Are you getting out early from your objective? If that is the case, you got to stop looking at the market. You got to put your stop in, your objective, and go do something else, or go look in another market and don't be tempted to go peek. Because what happens when you're looking at every trade, it builds up anxiety. Like, is it going to get there? It's not going. If it doesn't get there, oh, right. It's like every move is it's for you or against you, for you, and it builds up. So, two things I would say: if you're not following your target, well, then that's the answer. Don't look at it. If it's your plan, well, if you have a good plan, go back and see if your target is too small. And believe me, don't just change it right away. On a practice account, go look, see if I go for 3 to 1. If it was 2 to 1, I don't know what it is, but if you a little larger, or do a little more size.
Had a meeting with the VIPs today in my group, and there was one trader talking about a 15-minute opening range, and they wanted to take that trade consistently. And they were looking at it today, and for example, they took it today to the short side. I think a lot of times when we choke trades, it's loss avoidance. where the trader asked, "What could I do to do this better?" Where they took a 15-minute opening range breakout trade. It broke to the short side, and they ended up losing 180 points on micros, right? So well managed with micros. Sometimes there's nothing you can do if you want to stick to a strategy. Coach, we went back and looked over the course of the month. If they just kept it as simple as I trade the opening range breakout on the 15-minute in either direction and leave the trade for either a 2-to-1 or a stop out, they made 2,900 points in the NASDAQ this month, which would have been with two micros, $10,000 with losses accounted for. So when we measure things, it sucks, right? I think there was a streak of like 4 or 5 days where it didn't work. The trade just lost. And the hard part is we look at it and say, how can I avoid that the next time, or what can I change to not have that happen? But if you've measured something, and Genius Genie, and that just goes for everybody, if you've measured something, just understand that you've measured when it doesn't work also, and we have to trade those in real time. Um, and it's not fun. Nobody wants to lose. That trade I took this morning to the short side in the S&Ps, I don't know if I would take the second one, but the first one I took, I would take it again. Sometimes it's going to lose, sometimes it's going to win. If over the grand scheme of time it works out, let the numbers play. Uh,
Let the numbers play. You hit a right. Have a plan. You can't. You can choose to follow a plan, right, which is the absolute necessity.
yep,
Um, but if if you don't follow the plan and you hijack it, you're never going to build a benchmark database that you can trust.
yep.
Because how would you know if you need to adjustment if you're not following some regiment? You won't.
Yeah.
So, after a couple months, you say, well, you go back and go, I can tweak this. This is like an engine. Okay, I can tweak this. But unless you have the structure, that's where consistency comes from, routine. So I just saw Genius Genie said risk reward is 1 to 1.74. Wow. Um, that's precise. Um, maybe it's the preciseness. Um, practice on your practice account 2 to 1. It's just to get the idea.
Yep.
Get to a point too where I'm not kidding you. Set it and forget it. No amount of watching. It's like is going. It helps. Think about that. None of it helps if you trust your plan.
All right. Couple questions here. Merc Deep said, "Can I explain that again?" The 15-minute range trade we were looking at, basically, it was look at the 15-minute opening range from the market's open. If the after that 15 minutes is established, it breaks to the upside, take a long. It breaks to the downside, take a short. The stop was on the other side. And again, this is for educational purposes only, not for trading advice. But it's a trade that traders look at, right? It's a very similar way to the 1 minute opening range trade that Hogue and JD look at every day. I think it's probably one of the most simple mechanical trades that we take on Topstep TV, where they identify a range. There's literally no guessing. They identify a range. If it breaks to the upside, I'm long. If it breaks to the downside, I'm short. Risk goes on the other side, and you go from there. Here it is in gold. Broke to the upside. Risk is on the other side. 6 points of risk about, and try to hold on to it for a 2-to-1, if not more, but at least a 2-to-1. Uh, and that's a 12-point trade in gold with one mini. That's $1,200. Uh, but you have to let it work out. Coach, I think it's funny.
That's
A lot of times traders say they have trouble holding on to trades, but who cuts losers early? You
well,
don't have trouble holding on to trades.
that's That's the human condition.
Yep.
You know, losing is twice as painful. I mean, there's a whole study. What is it? I forgot the name of the study, but losing is at least twice as painful as winning is brings happiness. So in the human condition, we avoid losing, so we'll jump out early. That goes back to the principles of consistent winners: is accept it or let it go. And then when you get to that point, you can budget your risk out. Otherwise, what are you relying on?
Hope.
Hope is not a strategy. It's a four-letter word.
Hope is not a strategy. All right, we are coming up on time here. Uh, any other markets? Anything on your scouting report right now, Coach Paul? I wish I had my quote board up so I could take a look. Anything on your scouting report right now?
Gold.
There we go. Keep it simple.
Keep
Sometimes
it.
you don't need to find another game to play. The game's right in front of you. Execute it. Gold is an interesting market.
All right.
Anything else you
Well,
got before we go, Coach?
um, plan your trade and trade your plan.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I got nothing else. Remember, we got classes going on all the time. Coach Hoop is doing a class in Discord in the next 15 minutes or so. Coach Ray and Coach Vince at 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. Central Time. They might switch today. Uh, and then, of course, Dakota with slow markets at 7:30. It's Wednesday, so I'm going to be joining Dakota for slow markets. And we will talk to you all then. The president is going to be speaking about his first 100 days in office at the same time. So the markets might be moving. Trade well, manage your risk, wait for opportunities to present themselves, and execute when they do. And we will talk to you all tomorrow.
Well
Thanks, Coach.
said,
Thanks, Andrew.
coach.
Bye.
Bye.